So so basically anybody who knows me knows that I like people that can explain themselves. I like people that can explain their stances, tell me how they got to certain points with their ideas. And sometimes I can actually see where they're coming from and we can basically have a common ground. I get on the internet just like you and I look for people that are sometimes saying they're seeing the same things I'm seeing. This professor Jiang, he actually is saying what I've been saying since before we engaged with Iran. We've already lost this war. Let me tell you why. The fact that they hit us back means we lost. The fact that our own commander in chief, who I'm wearing a MAGA hat, I adore the guy. The fact that he can't even give me a clear reason for why we actually unilaterally or we just went and attacked them unprovoked. He can't explain to me why. That shows weakness. When you don't know why you're doing something, that's weak. We know that it's Israel who pressured us and forced us to attack Iran. It was Israel that forced us and lied to us about the weapons of mass destruction, which is why we invaded Iraq and destroyed that country. Why we invaded Libya and killed the richest man in Africa, Gaddafi. Why we attacked Syria and expelled their leader, al-Assad, why he's in Russia now in exile. This is all a part of the greater Israel project, not the America First agenda. This means we've already lost. If you're say you're a freshman in high school and you're a nerd, you wear your glasses, and the biggest bully in the school, the biggest jock, is pushing you around and punking you in front of everybody. And say the jock calls you, says, I'm gonna meet you outside of the school at 3 p.m. And you're like just some little kid, but you show up for the fight. You guys put your bags down, and before the jock even realizes it, the small little kid actually hauls off and punches him in the face first. Even if the jock gets on top of him, wails on him, puts him in a hospital, the entire school is going to say the kid won. The fact that you showed up and you defended yourself and you fought back, the fact that you punched him and you gave him a bloody nose, when everybody else in the school is scared to fucking death to fight back. Everyone around you, everyone in your class, everyone in the school, no matter which grade, everyone's afraid of this one jock. He bullies everybody, he takes everybody's money, he steals all their stuff, he goes through their lockers, he checks their pockets, whatever he wants to do. Unchecked. No one can say anything to him. But then all of a sudden, someone decides to stand up for themselves and they fight back and they punch. You won the fight. Yeah, you got beat up, blah, 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 but you fought back. Bravery is what counts. You won. This fight with Iran, we've already lost. I'm watching all the footage that I can't even share here. I actually shared footage yesterday on TikTok. They literally threatened to basically ban my account. I have thousands of followers, hundreds of thousands of likes, and all I did was share a video of the buses on fire in Tel Aviv. Now, there's like 100 other accounts that shared that same video. Magically, they have an issue with me sharing it, but whatever. The truth is the truth. The information is going to come out. We are losing this war. The interceptor missiles that it's going to take to fuel the Iron Dome and the missile defense batteries, they're depleted. Now they're going to start doing direct hits. Iran's not going to stop until Trump does what Obama did, which is send pallets full of billions of dollars behind the scenes and behind the backs of Americans. Trump's going to have to bribe the Iranians to stop, because you're going to have the entire GCC, the Gulf Coast community. You're going to have the entire Gulf Coast region is going to now turn on the United States, and they're going to pressure us to find a ceasefire with Iran, because Iran is only a couple of days away from being there's no more missile defense batteries to protect the oil fields. See, that's the global economy. That's the American petrodollar. They've already had direct hits and destroyed the largest oil refinery in the world in Saudi Arabia. They're going to hit all of them. They're already currently attacking 15 different countries. The next step is not only going after the oil fields, but they're going to go after the desalination plants. What is a desalination plant, Rico? I'll tell you. Some of you guys don't understand that the Gulf Coast is a desert. There's no fresh water reserves like we have in America. We have mountains, we have lakes. They don't have that in the middle of the desert. So, but they have these massive cities. So what they do is they build these amazingly marvels of human ingenuity called desalination plants, where they're able to take water from the ocean that is salted, and they're able to remove the salt from the water at these facilities, and then they're able to pump fresh water into the kitchens to supply their populations. Iran's already hit one. If Iran targets the others, the entire GCC has about a little bit less than 2 weeks of water for their populations. It's going to take years to rebuild these facilities. You're not going to have water for the people doing the construction. You're going to have to import it. How? They're bombing the roads. They're bombing the facilities. They're bombing all of the places where you're basically refining the oil. You're bringing it in and out. There's no more planes that are landing. The entire Gulf Coast is going to be a hostage to Iran. They're going to have to now question their relationship with the United States. The number one reason people join up with larger nations is for protection. You join NATO for protection. You're going to want to join the UN. Hopefully, you can keep the peace and you'll be protected from a larger nation. America can't protect you anymore. We can't protect Kuwait, Qatar, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, the UAE. We can't protect Dubai. We cannot even protect ourselves right now because we don't have missile defense batteries up and down our eastern seaboard. They're hitting our bases, direct hits. And the suicide drones, Iran hasn't even pulled those out yet. They haven't even started hitting us with the hypersonic missiles. They almost lost their society. We killed their pope. They're going to do whatever they have to do to survive. They can't stop. And we don't have the weapons to put in these missile defense systems because we gave them all to not just Israel for their stupid ass, useless ass Iron Dome, but we also gave them to the fucking Ukrainians. And all of our American missile defense systems that were destroyed by the Russians, yeah, they had those missiles in them. And all the depots where we were storing them, the Russians turned them all into dust. Parking lots. So where are the missiles supposed to come from? We don't have a manufacturing base in our military industrial complex the way you think. See, it's an all money in situation, very little money out. Because we're the bullies and everyone's afraid of us, we didn't necessarily need to heavily to rely on defense. That was an extreme miscalculation, and Trump should have never listened to Bibi. Because see, Bibi's not going to take the fall for this. Trump is. Anyway, let's talk to Professor Jiang. He's going to explain to us his predictions. He predicted everything like that was going to happen, and he's been right. And he's going to explain why we can't win this war, why we've already lost. I've given my reasons. This man's going to reinforce those. So let's take a listen.
From our show, but this was from a different, from his own show, Predictive History on YouTube. This is what he said about, well, these are his predictions here.
So in this class, this semester, I'm making 3 big predictions, right? First is that Trump will win in November. Second is that the United States will go to war against Iran. And the third big prediction is that the United States will lose this war, which will forever change the global order.
Okay. So far, 2 out of 3 of those predictions that he gave, obviously before Trump was even elected, they came true. So Trump was elected, and now here we are at war with Iran. And he even said on our show that the United States would invade Iran, and I believe he said that it would be before April. But let's go ahead and watch what he said when he was on this show about the U.S. invading Iran.
This is the new normal. 2027 will be even worse because that's when I think that the United States will actually launch invasion of Iran. So 2026 will be a great conflict between China and America as they try to reconcile the differences. And once they reconcile the differences, this will open up Iran for invasion. Because the great fear is that if the United States invades Iran at this point, Russia and China will support Iran. And there's a great possibility that the United States will lose this war. There's no way that Russia will abandon Iran, but China can be negotiated away from Iran. And that's Trump's game plan before he launches a full-scale invasion of Iran. Look, it's already been settled. There's already an agreement that the United States will go and invade Iran because if the United States wants to maintain its imperial hegemony, it needs to control trade access. It needs to control Iran. Because once it controls Iran, then China is blockaded. The Belt and Road Initiative is dead. And now the entire Russian southern flank, okay, the southern bottom of Russia is open up, and Russia could be outflanked. So Iran is crucial to the maintenance of American hegemony. The question now is, when will this happen and how will this happen? So I think it will happen next year, not this year. And Trump needs to create this grand bargain with China before he moves ahead.
Okay. So I do want to say something because obviously we did invade. Well, we haven't invaded. So I think this is important to remember when you say, well, he said it would happen next year. And look, we're at war with Iran this year. He's specifically talking about invasion. And he actually does an entire show on this on his Predictive History channel. And he talks about the U.S. invading Iran with ground troops. And he says this happens, he believes, in March or February, March or April of 2027, he says. So I think that could be accurate if the war continues on for a year and there's no real, Trump has even said today that he'd be willing to send in troops. And if there isn't any real gains going on, and if we're kind of in this stalemate of this sort of air and naval war, then it is very possible that ground troops get sent in. And it's also possible that the timeline is just sped up. I mean, that's also possible that we didn't even have to wait a year because Trump decided he wanted to do it before the midterms or something.
Iran will also be a major flashpoint in 2026 because right now these protests in Iran, and we know exactly what's going to happen because we see.
Oh, maybe when did I have him on the show? Maybe he is saying that, no, I had him on in January. So maybe when he says next year, do you think he means next year?
Before in Libya and Syria. What's going to happen is that Mossad is going to create these insurgent groups in Iran on the borderlands. They'll be protected by airstrikes and be financed by the CIA. You have these Mossad agents leading these groups, and you'll have slowly an economic blockade of Iran. You have sabotage, infiltration in Iran. You're going to hear a lot about Iran because the Americans, the Israelis, they'll try to create this narrative that any day now, the mullahs will flee to Moscow. Any day now, the regime will collapse. Any day now, the military will launch a coup d'etat against Iran. Any day now, these Iranian people will rise up and overthrow the regime. And look, the reality is that Iran is under tremendous pressure. And so you'll have this infiltration, you'll have these insurgent groups, you'll have warfare going on in Iran. So you'll hear a lot about Iran in 2026.
Well, you may have seen the conversations happening online lately. Censorship is back and it's happening everywhere. Platforms are controlling narratives and pushing the stuff they want us to see. We need to fight back. Rumble is the only company that has stood to support your favorite. Today, we're already talking about the Kurds. I mean, that is something that has been discussed as, activating the Kurdish population and getting them to fight. So that could be the next phase. I mean, we start off with the aerial, maybe we go into naval, And then there could be these other groups that they try to fight, but then ultimately U.S. troops get sent in, which is what Professor Jiang ultimately predicts. Now let's talk about what is the point of all of.
Let me go ahead and add this in there. I heard that, and Trump's talking about that. That's a piss poor idea. For one thing, hoping that the people, the Kurdish people who are in prison in Iraq, that you can send them into Iran to fight on behalf of the people that have kept them in prison, even though it's Iran that's fighting on behalf of the entire Muslim world, is a failed strategy. That's what you would call a Hail Mary. And there's too many variables in that equation where something can go wrong. You don't want to arm the people who are your enemies. That's what happened with the Taliban. That's what happened with ISIS in the first place. That is a horrible strategy. That is a desperate move. That means that we never thought this out long enough. And the reason we didn't think this out is because this was not our idea. This was Israel's idea. America's just their point and click attack dog. Point and click at the country. America will attack on behalf of Israel. Why? Because we want access to their looking glass technology. That's their intel. That's the only benefit we have working with Israel. What is looking glass technology? Epstein works for Israel. He used the scientists from the Manhattan Project back in the 90s. They spent 15 years looking to develop technology that could help them predict the stock market using high energy physics and mathematics. But they ended up being able to look and see other things besides the stock market. He works for Israel. Israel has the technology. Washington has access to it after Israel. That's the only benefit we have. It keeps us in the front. But apparently Israel must have been feeding us bad headlines, because how did we not know Iran was going to crush our defenses, our allies, our bases? How did we not know this? We essentially bit off more than we can chew. This whole Kurdish thing means that we are scrambling to figure this out, and Israel's not telling us what to do next, because maybe they don't know, or maybe they want to see us lose. Israel, like I keep telling you, is not our ally. Israel's our worst enemy. But let's get back to Professor Jiang.
This, and he says this leads into Pax Judaica, that ultimately the United States loses the war. The United States, one of the videos that I watched of his, which again, I just really cannot recommend his channel enough. One of the videos he talks about is how the U.S. loses when it comes to the troops on the ground, that Iran is surrounded by mountains, and you could get the troops in, which is still very difficult to do, but you have multiple problems once you get the troops in, which is why the United States loses the ground war, and that Iran is actually trying to get us into a ground war. That is what they want, because they know if we get into their country, we lose. And the reason is all of these mountains, which means it's difficult to get the troops in. Once you get them in, you've got two problems. You don't know how to resupply them, because it's very difficult to get over all those mountains. And the bigger issue is you can't get them out. The troops are stuck. So he says that what would happen is the troops end up stuck in Iran, and that the U.S. threatens to nuke Iran in order to get the troops out.
They're not going to nuke Iran. We don't have nukes. No one has nukes. We can firebomb. We can drop a mother of all bombs, but we don't have nukes. And that's not going to help. This is what my prediction is. The United States military is infected. There's a mind virus of communism and Marxism amongst the ranks. If you know what the makeup of what our current army looks like, you'll know what I'm talking about. I know Pete Hegseth has made arrangements to mitigate the damage caused by that mind virus. First thing he did was he did what he could legally to purge out the mentally ill trans that are also controlled by that mind virus. He was able to legally remove them from the military. But what about the Marxists and the communists? A lot of them are black. You're not going to be able to legally remove them from the military, so they're stuck there, and they're infecting the ranks, and they're dragging down our armed forces to the point where we're ineffective right now, because racial ideology and identity politics is now turning our own soldiers against the Republic. I think we are going to send in, on purpose, the Marxists and the communists in hopes that they will be removed from our ranks, if you know what I mean. And it's going to be a limited deployment of mainly those troops. I've already seen what the troops that have been killed so far look like. There is a pattern. And I think to save our military, We are going, and because when you have that ideology, you can't talk those people out of it. You can't vote your way out of it. It has to be destroyed. And they're going to send in those in our armed forces who have that mind virus. They will be sending them in to be destroyed. There will be no nuking Iran. There will be no taking Iran. There's no benefit of us attacking Iran. This is all for Israel's Greater Israel Project. Because of that, we've already lost. But at least we might be able to rid our ranks of that infection, that mind virus of Marxism and communism. So that might be the only upside to this entire debacle. And you know what? Pete Hegseth actually has the stomach to do it. Trump doesn't. Hegseth does. And I think he's going to do what it takes.
Basically say, let our guys go or we're going to nuke you. And ultimately at the end, the United States loses. This becomes a giant failure for the U.S. and we abandon the Middle East, and Israel ends up inheriting all of our weaponry, all of the stuff that we have in the Middle East. Because of course we're not going to just, we leave stuff behind every time we abandon, but this time we'll make sure the Israelis at least get it. Because then we'll say, well, our best allies and friends in the Middle East, Lindsey Graham, they're the ones who are going to have all that equipment. So we left it to our greatest friends and allies, Israel. Yeah, the greatest friends and allies who got us into this war that just will end up killing a ton of Americans, American soldiers, but our greatest friends and allies. So they end up with all the equipment. They become really strong in the region. Then he says that what happens is all of these big companies end up building up. These big AI companies they end up going into Israel.
Yeah, I just did a video about that. Fuck Jasmine Crockett, fuck Al Green. They were both primaried to death. No more communists, no more Marxists, no more anti-whites, anti-American DEI bullshit in our Texas politics. They are gone. They can go fucking run for office in Africa. There are no white people there for them to complain about. They can't complain about racism or slavery. Actually, they can address the people that apparently captured them and boxed them up and sold them into slavery. Go talk to the Ghanaians. Go talk to the Nigerians. Go ask them for your reparations. Get out of our face. African Americans are not Americans. America is a different country. That's not the United States. So you got people who aren't even Americans involved in American politics. No, American politics are only for Americans. You're an African American. Go to Africa. Go get involved in those politics. This is not for you. And we got her out of there. She spent Al Green and Jasmine Crockett. The only thing they ever did in politics was complain about Trump with TDS and insult white Americans. None of them ever ran on anything. They never offered anything. They didn't do anything for their constituents. They didn't accomplish anything. They only made backhanded insults against white people and verbally attacked Trump. They were good for nothing else, not jack shit. Their districts are still in disrepair, full of crime and destruction and death. And if you look at all the jurisdictions around the country that are ran by their people, it's the same results repeating. That's why they should not be in office at all anyway. American politics, American elections should only be for Americans, not with all these synonyms in front of their names, but Americans only. So yeah, I just did a video about that. I'm gonna do another one in a couple of hours. And that piece of shit pirate Crenshaw, he's out of there too. So for Texas politics, today was an amazing day. And Texas is it's the largest state in the republic that's still American, because you have Florida, you have South Dakota, you have Tennessee. The rest of the republic is folded to the left into, the World Economic Forum globalists. Texas is still America, and we saved America today. So I want to talk about that some more, but we're going to be on this topic for another 20 minutes or so. Then we'll go back to that.
To build up in Israel because they have fewer rules and regulations there, and ends up creating Pax Judaica, and Israel runs the world.
No, we're not taking any of the refugees this time. The refugees are going to have to go to Saudi Arabia. They're going to have to go to Dubai. They're going to have to go to Israel. They're going to have to go to London. They're going to have to go to France. We Americans are not going to take in an influx, again, of people from countries that hate us. We're not taking in a bunch of people from the Middle East. We're not taking in a bunch of refugees from anywhere. The borders are closed. Unless you're coming from South Africa, the Boers, who are begging to become Americans. They love America. They want to be Americans. The rest of these people in the world, they just want to use us, get on our welfare system. They hate the country. They hate what we stand for. We're not allowing them in here. And we have Trump in the office, and he's going to do what it takes. We're not going to let people shame us or manipulate us into doing that. That was in our, we have 40 years of case study. We found out importing refugees was a failed idea. The children of the refugees resent us, and we're not doing that anymore. We learned the hard way. We're not making that mistake again.
I hope he's wrong on that, but that is what he says. Let's just go ahead and have him explain Pax Judaica. This was when he was on the show back in January. Okay, let's talk about Pax.
No, most Republicans don't support assisting Israel. You're thinking about Ben Shapiro. He's Israel first. There are certain people within the Republican Party, but they're only the politicians. They're the ones who support Israel. As far as the conservatives, MAGA, Americans, we don't. And that's why we're primarying those people who want to support Israel. That's why Crenshaw is gone. We're going to purge the rest of them. Anybody with dual citizenship, anybody who's Israel and America, everybody who's Israel, get the fuck out. We don't want them anymore in our politics. American politics and American resources are for America and Americans only. And we are going to systematically remove those people. Tucker Carlson got it right. He's on the right path. We're going to follow that strategy.
Pax Judaica. So you say right now we're in a Pax Americana, Pax America or Pax Americana? What's the right term?
Yeah, Pax Americana. Pax Americana.
Okay.
Americana, yes. And
we're moving toward a Pax Judaica, which is what exactly?
Okay. So the year 1688, this is the Glorious Revolution. This is when the King of England is overthrown by the nobility, and William of Orange, who is from the Dutch Republic, he's installed as the king. And this is significant because this creates the sovereignty of Parliament. So Parliament now is above the king. And what happens next is 1694, the creation of the Bank of England. And the Bank of England are these private interests, transnational capital. And the Bank of England, they are guaranteed by Parliament. And so this creates the idea that these private investors can lend money to the Bank of England, and if they make money, they keep their money. But if they lose money, then the Parliament, the people, guarantee their losses. So it's socialized losses, privatized gains. Okay, so this becomes the new model of global finance. Why this happens is that in Europe at this time, the world is in flames. So 30 Years' War, Protestants versus Catholics, and all these rich people, the Dutch Republic, the Habsburg Empire, Catholic Church, they need to be able to store their wealth in a more safe place as the world burns. And the safest place at this time is of course, England, because it's being protected by the Royal Navy. And so all this capital shifts over to England, and it's stored in the Bank of England.
You know, it's crazy. Everybody thought that Dubai was one of the safest places on earth. Oh, we're going to go to Dubai. Oh, we're going to park our cars here. Oh, we're going to park our toys here. Oh, it's the safest place on earth. We can park our money here. And now they're getting the dog shit kicked out of them. I think we're doing better in Compton, California than we do in Dubai right now, because we're not being bombed here in the U.S. because we have these things called oceans. I don't know if you've ever heard of them, but that kind of keeps us away from all the riffraff and BS. That's why our military should be focused on protecting our borders and our shores, and not involved on the other side of the world, getting ourselves into fights that we can't win against enemies that we underestimate.
These private investors have control over this capital, but it's guaranteed by both the Royal Navy as well as by Parliament. And this allows for the creation of the British Empire. And it's a fantastic model because, you fast forward 100 years and you have the rise of Napoleon. Napoleon is this great conqueror, he conquers all of Europe. But Britain, with the Bank of England, they're able to finance 7 wars against Napoleon until Napoleon is finally defeated, and then England becomes the most dominant nation in the world. Okay, so this creates Pax Britannica, and then after World War I, World War II, this creates Pax Americana. Why? Because if capital is able to move to England, it's also able to move to America, right? And then you have the creation of a Federal Reserve. But now that America is burning, where do you go now? Well, you go to Israel. Why? Because first of all, Israel has nuclear weapons. So Israel will be safe. Second of all, the Middle East has been destroyed, right? Israel has no competitors. Iraq, Libya, Syria, they've all been burned to the ground. Iran is the last on the list. And so once you burn Iran to the ground, then Israel has complete dominance over the Middle East, and it can just rebuild the Middle East in a new image. And this new image will be one of AI surveillance. So ideas that you have, right, AI, digital currency, digital ID, you're going to face a lot of stiff resistance in America because Americans like their freedom. But hey, the Middle East has been destroyed. You can now replace your populations with Filipinos, with Chinese, with Indians, and then you can insert microchips into the bloodstreams. And now you have this perfect, surveillance state where
he's even telling you the truth. They are injecting people with technology where they can surveil you based on what they're putting into your bloodstream. They don't even need you to look into stuff and do the biometrics. They can inject this technology to surveil you into your bloodstream. They have devices that you can swallow, and they're telling you it's going to track your health, but it's really tracking you. They already know that it's not going to work here in the US. So what they're going to do is they're going to rebuild the Middle East, and they're going to start doing it there because we like our freedoms here too much. At least they know that Americans are not going to go down without a fight. But they feel that when you bring these weaker subcultures into the Middle East, they're not going to complain. You bring in Filipinos, Chinese, Indians, they will work and they'll live in these areas and they will not complain about the mass surveillance because they're not used to freedom in the first place. At least he knows. And he's Chinese. So, I mean, like I said, these people think a lot and they think ahead. And he's just sharing their thoughts with us, which I'm surprised is even allowed to do by the CCP.
One is monitored, but not only is everyone monitored, their emotions are constantly being calibrated, being controlled by their surveillance state. And so you basically have a slave state, and then you introduce transhumanism where all the rich people in the world, they can go to Jerusalem and experience all this transhumanist technology, organ transplants that allow them to live 150 years. So that's the very idea of Pax Judaica, right? Capital needs to move to a more safe place, which is Israel, but also these oligarchs, they want to achieve a transhumanist vision of the world. And so Israel has this technology, but also they want to create a surveillance state in order to maintain permanent control of the world, and that's Pax Judaica.
Great. So
basically, they want Israel to be the capital of transhumanism, and they're going to do the transplants with all their new technology that will enable people to live to be 150 years old by replacing all their organs with synthetic, because they're doing all the technology and advances there. However, Israel is not safer than the United States because Israel's being bombed right now. The United States is not. Your capital is going to be safer here in the American banks than they would ever be in a region as volatile as the Middle East. So I think he might have that wrong. And I don't think Americans are going to put their wealth in the Middle East. We can't trust it. Yes, offshore bank accounts in Panama, maybe the Swiss Alps, but now that they have new laws in those countries where you got to disclose who owns certain accounts, I mean, Americans just don't feel safe. As far as moving capital around, I don't think Israel is going to be somewhere that's super safe. I mean, they're being bombed right now. I don't even think tourism is going to go back to Dubai anymore. They're being bombed and their airports are closed. So like me, for example, I remember the fact that I just heard about what's going on in Mexico. I'm supposed to go to Rocky Point this weekend. I have a trip planned. Even though the war is like 1,000 miles away from where I'm going, I don't like the fact that it's happening in that country. So yeah, it's safe in the part of the country I'm going in until it's not safe. And it can be just my luck that I'm trapped somewhere dealing with some cartels. It turns me off to the whole country. I'm not saying, oh, well, this part of the country is great. The whole country. Well, what about if you see a shooting in LA, is that going to stop you from going to Philadelphia? If I'm in the UK, maybe I'd rather prefer to go to a country that's completely safe and not just the good parts, But I mean, that's me. Maybe you might be different.
Basically, what Trump has done, let me just get this straight, is Trump has not only broken his promise about no more Middle Eastern wars. We're in a Middle Eastern war. He not only broke his promise about no Epstein files, I mean, getting the Epstein files, we still don't have all of the Epstein files, right? Which is highly suspicious. And now we're at war with Iran, doing whatever it is Israel wants. But now on top of it, the other thing that people voted for Trump for was to ensure that we didn't end up with that new world order. You will own everything, you will own nothing, and you will be happy. The surveillance state, the big brothers, the cashless society. Everybody thought Trump would be stopping all of that to ensure, stopping the Klaus Schwab World Economic Forum model for the world, the social credit scores, all of these things. And instead, Trump has now accelerated that because it will be controlled by the Israelis, as they're the ones who've developed all the AI. They're the ones who've developed all the surveillance. And they're going to instead control and develop. And all of these countries around the world will pick it up and adopt it. Europe will take it. China will, they're already taking it. Countries around the world will ensure that people are monitored, surveilled, censored, silenced, controlled. And Trump, by ushering us into this Iran war, has just expedited that. Isn't that lovely? Isn't that lovely? I want to play this video clip. This one's not from my show, but he talks again about how Pax Judaica is created.
When you have Israel fighting wars everywhere, okay? The main enemy right now is Iran. In Europe, you have the Europeans about to go to war with Russia in Ukraine. America right now is threatening to attack Venezuela, okay? South America. You have 10% of the U.S. Navy in the Caribbean, and they're about to attack Venezuela. You have China and Japan at conflict. You have India here, and you have Africa. Okay? So what's going to happen in the short term? Okay, well, what we know is that Europe is planning to go to war with Russia. Okay. Europe is about to go to war with Russia, okay? At the same time, you have a lot of immigrants in Europe. And this is going to create civil wars in Europe. Okay, civil war. So you have both war with Russia as well as civil war. So Europe is kind of screwed, okay? America has the same situation where the left-right divide is so polarized that eventually they'll go to war. If you read the news, you may have heard about the shootings at Brown University, as well as this MIT physicist who was shot, okay? So random violence will be more and more common in the United States. And you can argue that it's all deliberate because the idea is this. Let's just say you have a jar. You put red ants in a jar and black ants in a jar. They get along fine. But you take the jar and you just shake it up, and now they're at war with each other, okay? That's what's happening where the left and right, they really don't like each other. They don't talk to each other, and they refuse to engage in debate with each other. But they're not going to fight each other unless there's violence, in which case their tribal mentality takes over and they start killing each other, okay? So we're going to expect civil war in the United States. Then you're going to have the Americans start to attack Venezuela and possibly other countries in South America. So America is in for a bad time, okay? China, yeah, I mean, Japan and China and India, they're all going to have conflicts with each other. But also what we should expect is that America starts to embargo China, meaning America uses its sea power to block China from accessing resources from overseas. And China imports most of its oil and a lot of its food. So if there's a blockade of China, you can expect the Chinese economy to really suffer, okay? All right. And then what we can expect to happen is America at some point will go to war with Iran. And this will destroy both countries, okay? Iran will not lose this war, but it won't win this war either because America is just going to bomb the crap out of Iran. It's just going to send Iran back decades. But America will lose this war, but this is important because if America loses this war, it's forced out of the Middle East. And once it's forced out of the Middle East, all its military assets goes to Israel, which creates the Pax Judaica. Does that make sense, guys? That's the plan. Okay, now you have Pax Judaica. And what Pax Judaica will do is start to control the world. Because through chaos and conflict, Pax Judaica can make a lot of money, right? Because Pax Judaica, what's going to happen is that you have these technology companies like Google, they're going to move over to Pax Judaica and build a global surveillance state. You have civil wars, you need AI to control people.
Yeah, but wouldn't Iran blow up those locations? I mean, obviously, Israel is not as protected or as safe as anybody thought. Now, again, this is a video. He made these predictions before Trump won. Trump won in 2024. So this has to be filmed in maybe, I would say, the summer of 2024, maybe September at the latest. So I think his information is a little bit outdated. Yes, he did say the United States would lose versus Iran, but his prediction that Israel will ascend, I think that's the only thing he's gotten wrong so far. Also, he's underestimating this whole conflict between China, Japan, and India, mainly because he's in China and his speech is controlled.
If you're going to war with Russia, you need weapons, okay? But you also need financing as well. So you can expect a lot of banks to move to Israel, and it's possible Israel becomes now the global reserve currency because everyone is trading with Israel.
So that's how he says we end up with Pax Judaica, that all of this is essentially going to be the demise of the United States. And there are people, not going to lie, I've been seeing a lot of people talking online about how they think that's the end goal for Israel, that Israel is ready, wanting to overpower and overtake the United States as the top dog.
Yeah, they want to. They have the aspirations. They always have. I mean, what do you think 9/11 was over? Why do you think they did that to Kirk? Why do you think Israel sees the United States as their dog, their attack dog? They hate Christians, but we have weapons, we have size, and we have a military, and we want access to their looking glass technology. That's one of the only things I was able to pull out of the Epstein files that I can make heads or tail about was his genetic algorithms. That's looking glass technology. That's what that means when you translate it. So yeah, they want that. They have aspirations for that, but it's not going to happen.
Basically, the little brother has grown tall, and the little brother wants to be able to basically beat up on the big brother. And they've effectively, over the last, I would say,
I mean, if your little brother wants to beat up on you, then that means that Israel is purposely sabotaging the United States by even driving us to fight to Iran, knowing that we won't be able to win in this fight against Iran. So this is Israel sabotaging us while pretending to be our friend, like they always have.
20 years been able to do that. It used to be very obvious that the United States was a big brother, Israel was a little brother. But now growth spurts happen, and they grew, and now they're bigger than us. They are controlling us. They've figured out how to manipulate us. I wouldn't say they're bigger than us yet, but they certainly do know how. Like, we're the older brother, but we're also the dumb one. So they figured out how to manipulate us in order to get us to do what they want. But they're ready to grow big and strong and just be the bigger brother.
Yeah, New York's going to look, Tehran is going to look way better than New York City is pretty soon. Again, Mandami is there to destroy New York, not to build it up. Mandami is not an American. He just lives in America. He's not a Giuliani. He's not an American. All this acceptance of other cultures and open society and listening to black people when they tell you to let everybody else become in charge of your systems that your family's built, that's a failed situation. They want to destroy this place. By the time Mandami is finished with New York, it will not be Tehran. It will be Libya. It is already going to be Escape from New York. I'm just waiting on Snake Dresden to show up. That place is going to hell. And they voted for it, so let it go. The problem I'm going to have is when all the New Yorkers who voted for Mandami bail the fuck out. Why? You got what you wanted. You wanted him to be your leader. Why are you leaving your leader to go to DeSantis or to come see Abbott when you said you hated those guys? That's my only issue. I think that there should be a ban where certain states that you have to apply. That's the only thing about being in America. It's 50 different countries, but there's no restrictions on travel. You don't need a passport, and you can kind of just go where you want. You don't want the Californians. You don't want the Mandami voters to come to your state. You don't want that, because that's going to create problems and conflict. Let them soak. Let them fall on their own sword and let them stay there. We can't just keep rescuing them by letting them shuffle around and bring their problems with them. That's my main issue with the whole situation with Mandami. The damage he's doing, I'm fine with you destroying New York. The issue is the refugees from New York are going to come to the states where I live and destroy my society, and that's a problem.
Physically, even though they're the younger brother, they want to be the bigger physical brother. And because they have that desire, they don't want to be answered.
Mandami is one of Epstein's children. That is true. He even looks like him. He just has black hair, while Epstein, being an older person, is gray. Same face shape. He was dealing with the mother. Epstein was actually he had a breeding program, and he injected everybody who got the COVID vaccine. You guys all have some of Epstein's DNA in your body. So it's not just Mandami that's related to Epstein now. You all are. And Mandami is a product of the breeding program that Epstein was doing some of his experiments. Epstein was not just a philanthropist. He wasn't just a financier. He was one of the greatest scientific minds of the past 200 years. He's even more than that. The reason they distract you with all the child sex stuff is because they never want you to look into what was his research. What was the educational background of Maxwell and Epstein? What were their studies? They weren't just pimps and hoes driving around with a Cadillac and trafficking women. That's not what they were doing. They were doing science, actual science. They were making breakthroughs. They were geniuses. How do you think they came up with the looking glass technology? How was Epstein in 1993 able to recruit 1,000 scientists that were working on the Manhattan Project and Los Alamos and bring them to Santa Fe, to the Zorro Ranch? What were they working on? They were using high energy physics and mathematics. What were they doing? And you're so worried about the child sex bullshit that they're distracting you with and exaggerating that you're not even caring about the science behind his work. That's what they're covering up, not sex crimes. They're covering up the science. They're covering up the advancements that were made that you're not supposed to know about. I know about them because I can read between lines. You don't know about them because you're surface level and you're obsessed with all the weird sex stuff. And a lot of that shit's exaggerated. What you should be worried about is the science and what type of humans these people are and what they could do. Because they could do a lot more than just me and you. So that's the issue.
Or beholden or waiting for the United States to help them out. They want to be the ones controlling everything.
Oh, and by the way, do me a favor, subscribe to the channel, like the video. It pushes me into the algorithm. If you guys subscribe to my channel, because there's a lot of people who are watching that are not subscribed. I'm on 8 different platforms. I'd appreciate if you guys could come over to the YouTube channel, Rico Limbaugh. Subscribe to the YouTube, get the alerts. I do these videos all day, every day. I talk about all the different topics, but I will do it. It looks good for my algorithm. It looks good for the analytics. Please come over. That way you can be up to date when I do new posts and I bring up new topics. I bring up different guests. I love to hear the input from you guys in the chat. So join the community. We're on the way to 10,000, 20, 50,000 subscribers. So please, if you guys wouldn't mind tuning in to my pages, I appreciate the support and I'll try to do what I can to impress you.
To bypass the United States entirely. And now, so people are thinking that marching us into this war with Iran wasn't just about Iran. It wasn't just about hobbling and taking Iran down, but it was also about taking the United States down, about lowering our place on the world stage, replacing us with them. And that is something to really, truly think about. I have to say, I hope that Professor Jiang is wrong. I hope that none of this pans out, that his predictive history, maybe this time history won't repeat itself, that this time we will create a new history that other nations in the future could look back at and use their own predictive game theory models on. Because it is dismal to think that this is where we're headed, that our leaders were so stupid all of these years after World War II, marching us into conflict after conflict after conflict.
And the only way one good thing we can do is this. Iran is specifically looking for and targeting Netanyahu. Now they're saying he's already fled the country. They're saying Bibi is in Cyprus. Some are saying he's in Germany, which is ironic because Netanyahu's not his actual last name, and he's actually from Europe. Him and his family are European. They're not of Palestinian descent. They're not from that region of the world. They're Jewish, and they're not even. They're actually atheists, so they don't believe in the religious. So they're just occupiers. They've literally moved in and they're just there. They just took it. So if Iran is successful with hunting down Bibi, then that could throw all of this off the table. His predictions be wrong, and humanity will stand a fighting chance in the future. We just have to hope that Iran can find out where Bibi is and handle it.
Allowing the military industrial complex to grow, allowing the Israel lobby to be as strong as it is, to get us into another war that is this time, according to Professor Jiang, going to really be the end of the U.S. empire. I sure hope not, but I'm also not going to hold my breath because things aren't looking so good.
We are looking fine. The empire is okay. The problem is we're just too easily influenced by Israel because of that technology. If we can get our hands on removing that technology from Israel, then we'll let Israel sink. We have two amazing oceans, the Pacific and the Atlantic, which will delay any advancements on destroying our empire. The only threats to our empire we have are from within, and that's the Black community and the gay community, which they have already merged together, and we're fighting with them daily. But we're making progress. We removed 2 Blacks and gays from politics today. Jasmine Crockett, Al Green, both removed, primaried out. America is fighting back against the DEI, Black and gay plants that are trying to destroy our nation. Our only issues we got to worry about are domestic. We don't have to worry about some other enemy from abroad crossing our oceans and doing anything to us. It's these locals. They know the terrain. They speak the language. They were born here by happenstance, but they're not Americans, and they don't claim to be Americans. They claim to be everything else but American. So that's what we have to focus on. And him not being in the United States, he doesn't understand how the culture war that we're fighting over here. The Civil War is the culture war. And we had a victory this morning, and we're going to do a victory lap. We're going to celebrate. Fuck Jasmine Crockett and fuck Al Sharpton. Do me a favor. Like the channel, subscribe to the page. Texas Politics 1. I'm glad and proud to be a Texas resident now. I'm a refugee from California, kind of like everybody else out here. So subscribe to the channel, like the video. I'll be back on with another topic in about 20 minutes. Remember, it's America first and America only.
I've been needing to find a new apartment, which has not been easy with credit as bad as mine. Luckily, I found cosigning.com. They connected me with a cosigner who helped me get my dream apartment for me and my dog. I just paid a small fee and was able to move in fast. Get the cosigner you need for the apartment you want. Check out cosigning.com today.